Hello everyone. This short video is going to show you how we will dissect a Tommy Rough. First off, we'll go over a few of the features of the fish itself before cutting into its guts. So, first thing to know is the tail fin, or the caudal fin is right there obviously at the end of the tail. Then we have the anal fin down here. This fin up on top is known as a dorsal fin. And then we have the pectoral fins that run down the side of the fish that are used quite extensively for movement as well as turning and the like. And then down here we have the pelvic fins, which are obviously in pairs. And then through the middle of the fish we also have what's known as the lateral line, which you can just see there where I'm running the instrument. This is full of sensory receptors, and it can tell changes in pressure, water pressure. All right, now we're just going to have a bit of a closer look at the head. So obviously you should know this. The eye is quite an obvious one. We have the mouth, and also if you pull the jaw down you can just see the tongue sticking out there. This is the operculum. This is actually the covering for the gills, and you can actually pull that up and see how that works. So if we push that up, we can see a lot of the filaments of the gills, as well as the gill bone that supports it all. And obviously all the blood that goes into this collects the oxygen from the water and keeps the fish alive. And one last thing to actually point out before we move on to the innards of this little fishy is its nostrils up here. Now, unlike humans and obviously other animals, they don't use them for breathing. It's purely a sensory organ and a sense of smell. So breathing is purely through the gills. Okay, now we're going to put the fish over onto its dorsal, so its back effectively. And we're going to create a cut from the pelvic fins, so up here, down to the anus. Now obviously this can take a bit of sawing back and forth to get it actually into the skin and not the scales. And you've got to try not to cut too deep, obviously, because you will damage the organs themselves. So now that we've got that cut, let us have a closer look. Alright, so as we open the fish up, we're going to see two really obvious structures. One is the actual gut itself, which is obviously where all the action happens in the digestion. And then if we push that aside, we see the swim bladder, and that's this inflated sac here. And that's used for the fish to regulate its buoyancy in the water. So too much air, it will float to the surface like a cork, and too little, it will sink like a stone, but just right, it can get it sort of the right depth that it wants. And yeah, so that still remained inflated even though the fish is deceased. Now we're going to cut the fish a bit further up between the pelvic fins and up to almost the mouth, so we can expose things like the heart. Okay, so we're going to use some scissors because we're going to need to cut through a few bones. And obviously this is again difficult with scales that slide back and forth as you try to cut. Basically nice slow cuts. And you can open up, see if you've cut far enough forward. Oops, excuse the fingers in the way. And I can see I'm not quite far enough yet because the heart's not in view. Okay, now we're looking good. So, if I can try and keep my fingers out the way. What we have back here is the heart. And then you may also see the artery running to it just behind it. And these are phyloric tubes, so if we push them out the way, on one side we can see the pink liver. This is the liver here. Oops, sorry. We can see the liver here once we push the phyloric tubes out the way. And if we push them back the other way, we might also be able to see the spleen, which is generally a really dark sort of spot, but it's not going to be visible by the looks. So basically we push those phyllorectoids out the way, continue to push them out the way. You can see the intestines running along here. So they're the main bits we wanted you to see with the fish dissection. The really obvious one is obviously the heart and the liver. They're rather clear, as well as the swim bladder. Okay, and that's a brief look at the internal structure and the external structure of the fish. So check out the online practical guide and do your assignments following that, and hopefully this video was helpful. Cheers.